The vast ship of the Galactic Confederacy hung above Earth like a gleaming silver leaf, blocking out the sun over much of Asia. Humans stared upward in awe and fear as smaller crafts descended toward the United Nations headquarters in New York. Commander Tata Park straightened her uniform one last time before entering the conference room. At 38, she had not expected to become humanity's first representative to an alien civilization. Her military background had made her the logical choice when the visitors requested to meet with Earth's defense leaders rather than political figures. "They're waiting for you, Commander," said her aide, holding the door. Inside, 3 aliens stood around a circular table. Their bodies reminded Taiwan of tall, elegant praying mantises, though their skin had a bluish metallic sheen. The tallest one stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Galactic Confederacy," it said through a small device that translated its clicks and whistles. "We observe your species has achieved rudimentary space travel." Taiwan bowed slightly. "Commander Taiwan Park of Earth's Unified Space Command, we welcome you to our world." The initial meetings went well enough. The Confederacy explained they had been watching Earth for decades. They offered limited technological exchange and invited Earth to apply for provisional membership in their alliance of over 300 species. It was during the 4th meeting that Taiwan learned about the war. "The scourge has consumed 16 worlds in the past solar cycle," explained Krell, showing holographic images of planet-sized swarms of insectoid creatures. "They are a hive mind that exists only to feed and expand." "And they're heading this way?" asked Taiwan. "Not directly, but your solar system lies within their potential expansion zone." Taiwan studied the battle footage. The Confederacy ships moved in perfect, geometric formations. Their tactics seemed oddly rigid to her military mind. "We would like to offer our assistance in your war effort," she said. "Humans have extensive experience with conflict." The 3 aliens made a strange vibrating motion that the translator didn't capture. Later, Taiwan would learn this was their version of laughter. "Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel," Krell said. "Your technology is primitive. You would be a liability." The Confederacy classified humans as a non-threat species and denied their petition to join the war effort. While diplomatic relations continued, Taiwan felt the aliens viewed humans as children playing with dangerous toys. 3 months later, everything changed. Taiwan was woken at 3 a.m. by an emergency call. "Commander, the Europa Research Station is under attack." The colony on Jupiter's moon had been established 5 years earlier. Over 2,000 scientists and their families lived there. By the time Taiwan reached the command center, the first images were coming in. A scourge scout vessel, somehow separated from its main fleet, had found Europa. The attack was swift and brutal. The aliens consumed everything organic, including the colonists. When the emergency beacon finally went silent, the command center was deadly quiet. Taiwan ordered all the footage compiled and transmitted to the Confederacy embassy. "This is why we need to fight," she told Ambassador Krell the next day, her voice steady despite having not slept. These were civilians, scientists, children. Krell examined the footage without visible emotion. "A regrettable incident. The scout vessel has been destroyed by our patrols. That doesn't bring back our people," said Taiwan. "Let us help you fight them." "Your emotions are clouding your judgment," Krell replied. "This is precisely why primitive species should not engage in galactic warfare." Taiwan played her final card. She activated a hologram showing Earth's military forces on standby. "With respect, Ambassador, we will defend ourselves with or without your blessing, but we would prefer to coordinate our efforts." A day later, Taiwan received a message. The Confederacy Council had met in emergency session. Their decision: a small human contingent would be permitted to join the Confederacy fleet, as observers only. As Taiwan boarded the shuttle that would take her and 20 selected officers to the Confederacy flagship, her second-in-command, Jai-Ho Kim, looked concerned. "They're only letting us watch, not fight," he said. Taiwan smiled slightly. "For now. But they'll learn something important about humans. We never just watch for long. The shuttle doors close, and humanity took its first step into a galactic war that would change everything. The observation deck of the Confederacy flagship Eternal Vigilance offered a perfect view of the battle. Ji-Ho Kim watched with growing frustration as the alien vessels maintained their perfect geometric formations against the Scourge swarm ships. For the sixth time, the Scourge countered with the same flanking maneuver. For the sixth time, the Confederacy ships adjusted in exactly the same way they had before. "They're making the same mistakes," Ji-Ho muttered to Commander Taiwan Park. "The Scourge are learning their patterns." Taiwan nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The 20 human officers had spent 3 weeks aboard the flagship, watching battle after battle end in stalemate or minor Confederacy victories that cost too many ships. "Look at their fleet commander," Taiwan said quietly. "He's following their battle manual to the letter." The Confederacy had shown the humans their tactical guidelines, a massive document unchanged for over 2,000 years. To the aliens, this was a sign of their advanced, perfect warfare. To the humans, it looked like dangerous inflexibility. A warning alarm blared through the ship. The Scourge had changed tactics, sending a wave of smaller vessels directly toward the flagship, while the main Confederacy force was engaged elsewhere. "They predicted the formation," Ji-Ho said. "The flagship is exposed." On the command deck below, Confederacy officers moved with increasing urgency. Their standard protocols weren't working. The Scourge ships would reach them in minutes. Taiwan stood abruptly. "I'm going to speak with Fleet Commander Thrix." "We're observers only," reminded Min Su-Yun, their diplomatic liaison. "We're about to observe everyone on this ship die," Taiwan replied, already heading for the stairs. The Confederacy command deck fell silent as the human commander entered. Fleet Commander Thrix, a tall, silver-skinned alien with multiple eye stalks, turned to her with obvious annoyance. "Commander Park, observers are not permitted." "With respect, Commander, you have 20 fighter ships sitting in your launch bay while the Scourge are about to cut your flagship in half," Taiwan interrupted. "Let us help. Our defense formation will fail," Taiwan said firmly. "You've used it 6 times. They've adapted." The tactical display flashed red as the first wave of Scourge ships broke through the outer defenses. The flagship shuddered. Thrix hesitated, then made a gesture to his second. "Allow the humans limited fighter access." 5 minutes later, Taiwan and 4 other human officers were in the cockpits of Confederacy fighters. The alien technology was advanced, but intuitive enough for the humans to grasp the basics. "Remember, their ships are biomechanical," Taiwan told her makeshift squadron over the comms. "They think collectively. Standard formations won't work." "What's the plan?" asked Ji-Ho from his fighter. "Unpredictability, random evasive patterns. Target anything that looks like a sensory node." The 5 human-piloted fighters launched into the space around the flagship. The Confederacy command watched in confusion as the humans immediately broke formation, each flying in seemingly chaotic patterns. The Scourge vessels, used to the predictable movements of Confederacy ships, struggled to track the erratic human pilots. Taiwan dove her fighter directly at a Scourge vessel, firing at the last second at what appeared to be sensory tendrils before executing a role that no Confederacy pilot would attempt due to the forces involved. The Scourge ship's coordination faltered. 2 more human fighters exploited the opening, targeting similar points on other ships. "They're connected," Ji-Ho called out. "When one loses sensory input, the others get confused." On the flagship command deck, Thrix watched in astonishment as the 5 human fighters caused disproportionate chaos among the Scourge attackers. After 15 minutes of frantic combat, the remaining Scourge vessels retreated to rejoin their main fleet. When Taiwan returned to the command deck, the atmosphere had changed. The Confederacy officers looked at her with a mixture of respect and unease. "Your tactics were unsettling," said Thrix, "but effective. Humans are adaptable," Taiwan replied simply. War isn't about perfect formations. It's about responding to what your enemy does and changing faster than they can. Frix's eye stalks swiveled as he considered this. The Council will need to reevaluate your species' role in this conflict. 3 days later, the decision came. Humans would be permitted limited combat roles under Confederacy supervision. Taiwan and her team were assigned their own squadron of fighters. As the humans trained for their first official combat mission, Jehom noticed the Confederacy pilots watching them with curious attention. "They're studying us," he told Taiwan. She nodded. "Good. They need to learn that survival isn't about following the rules. Sometimes, you have to rewrite the book." As their squadron launched for their first sanctioned combat mission, Taiwan felt a mix of pride and concern. The Confederacy had no idea what they had just unleashed. Humans weren't just adaptable in combat. They were downright unpredictable in ways the galaxy had never seen. Han Sol Lee had spent 3 weeks studying the intercepted Scourge communications before he noticed the pattern. As the psychological operations specialist on Commander Park's team, his job was to understand how the enemy thought. The Confederacy had dismissed his request to analyze Scourge transmissions, claiming the signals were just biological noise. Han Sol knew better. "Look at this," he said, pointing to his screen as Taiwan entered his small workstation on the Confederacy vessel. "The Scourge don't just communicate through sound or radio waves. They use visual patterns too." On the screen, strange shifting colors and shapes pulsed in sequences. Taiwan leaned closer, her brow furrowed. "What am I looking at?" "Their ships transmit these patterns during battle. I believe it's how the hive mind coordinates. See these red shifting patterns? They always appear before a flanking maneuver." Taiwan's eyes lit up with understanding. "So if we could disrupt these signals, or better yet," Han Sol said with a small smile, "send our own versions." The human squadron had already won 3 significant engagements using their unpredictable tactics. The Confederacy Council had granted them more autonomy as the Scourge attacks intensified. Now they had a chance to do more than just outmaneuver the enemy. It took another week for Han Sol to create a program that could generate false visual signals matching Scourge patterns. He couldn't understand their language, but he could create variations that might confuse them. Taiwan presented the plan to the Confederacy commander overseeing their squadron. A tall, elegant alien named Vrix served as their supervisor. "This is merely a test," Taiwan explained. "We'll broadcast these modified visual patterns during our next engagement and observe how the Scourge react." Vrix's compound eyes shifted uncomfortably. "This seems irregular, but you have proven effective. You may proceed with caution." The opportunity came sooner than expected. A Scourge battle group attacked a Confederacy supply line near the Denara system. Taiwan's squadron was deployed along with 3 Confederacy battle groups. As the human fighters engaged the outer edge of the Scourge formation, Han Sol activated his program from the command ship. The modified visual patterns began broadcasting directly at the Scourge vessels. The effect was immediate and startling. Several Scourge ships broke formation, their movements becoming erratic. 2 larger vessels turned their weapons against smaller Scourge ships. Confusion spread through their fleet like a virus. "It's working," Jiho shouted over the comms as he guided his fighter through the chaotic enemy formation. "They're attacking each other." On the command ship, Vrix watched in growing horror as the Scourge fleet tore itself apart. Within 30 minutes, the remaining enemy vessels retreated in disarray, but not before destroying several of their own ships. The human fighters returned to the command ship, triumphant. The mood on the bridge, however, was not celebratory. The Confederacy officers stood in uncomfortable silence as Taiwan's team entered. Vrix approached them, his tall frame trembling slightly. "What have you done to them?" he asked in a quiet voice. "We exploited their communication methods," Taiwan explained calmly. "It's standard psychological warfare." "You deliberately induced confusion and self-destruction," Vrix said. "Why would such techniques even exist?" Han Sol stepped forward, These methods are actually regulated by our Geneva Conventions. We have rules about what is acceptable in warfare. Vrix's translator couldn't quite capture the strange clicking sound he made. You needed rules to prevent this kind of behavior. The humans exchanged glances. The concept seemed to genuinely disturb the alien. War is ugly, Jaiho explained. Long ago, humans realized we needed boundaries or we would destroy ourselves. So we created rules. But you still thought of these tactics, Vrix persisted. Your species conceived of psychological warfare against your own kind. Taiwan nodded slowly. Yes. And we've used much worse in our history, but we've learned to control ourselves. The Confederacy officers gathered around Vrix, their voices low as they discussed something urgently. Finally, Vrix turned back to the humans. Your squadron is temporarily suspended from active duty while the Council reviews this incident. Your psychological tactics are disturbing to many species in the Confederacy. As the humans returned to their quarters, Han Sol looked troubled. Did we go too far? Taiwan shook her head. No, we did what was necessary. The scourge destroy entire worlds. If the Confederacy is uncomfortable with psychological warfare, wait until they learn what else humans are capable of. 2 days later, reports came in of the largest scourge fleet ever detected heading directly for the Confederacy homeworld. The Council's message to Commander Park was brief. All human combat restrictions lifted. Deploy all necessary measures. Taiwan gathered her team. They're afraid of our methods, but they're more afraid of losing this war. It's time to show them what humans can really do. Su Min Choi ran his hand along the sleek hull of the modified fighter ship. As chief engineer for the human contingent, he had spent the last 72 hours implementing Commander Park's desperate plan. The work had left him exhausted, but there was no time for rest. The massive Scourge fleet was now just hours away from the Confederacy homeworld of Elysium. Are the modifications complete? Taiwan asked, stepping into the hangar bay where dozens of engineers worked frantically. Su Min nodded. 10 ships rigged to appear damaged but fully functional. The false radiation signatures will make them look like easy targets. Taiwan examined the nearest fighter. From the outside, it looked like it had barely survived a brutal battle. Hull breaches, damaged weapon systems, leaking energy signatures, all carefully engineered deceptions. And the broadcast system. Ready, Su Min confirmed. Han Sol's psychological warfare program has been upgraded. It should fragment their hive mind communication for at least 30 minutes. The door to the hangar bay slid open, and Ambassador Krell entered with a delegation of Confederacy officials. Their normally composed demeanor had given way to obvious anxiety. Elysium housed over 12 billion citizens, and evacuation was impossible. The Council demands an explanation of your plan, Krell said without preamble. These modifications make no tactical sense. Taiwan gestured to the holographic display, showing her complete strategy. We're going to make the Scourge think we're retreating. These damaged ships will act as bait, drawing in their forces. Meanwhile, our main fleet will appear to abandon the damaged vessels, but will actually be moving into position for a surprise attack. Deception, exclaimed one of the Confederacy officials. This violates all principles of honorable warfare. Jaiho, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. With respect, there is no honor in extinction. The Scourge don't fight fair. Why should we? This isn't just about deception, Taiwan continued. The next phase involves broadcasting manipulated hive mind signals that will cause confusion in their ranks. While they're disoriented, we strike their command nodes. Krell's long fingers tapped nervously on his datapad. Absolutely not. This is not warfare as the Confederacy understands it. Then perhaps that's why you've been fighting them for 50 years without victory, Taiwan said firmly. This is warfare as humans understand it, and it works. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Scourge would arrive in hours. Conventional tactics had failed for decades. The Confederacy was out of options. The Council grants you full operational autonomy, Krell finally said, his voice barely audible. May your species' savagery serve us well. As the Confederacy officials departed, Su-min turned to Tadwan. They think we're monsters. They'll think worse before this is over, she replied. But they'll be alive to think it. The battle began at dawn. The massive Scourge fleet darkened the skies of Elysium as it approached. Millions watched from the surface as their potential doom descended. The human strategy unfolded with precision. The damaged ships moved into position, broadcasting distress signals on frequencies they knew the Scourge monitored. The main Confederacy fleet appeared to retreat, leaving their wounded behind. The Scourge took the bait. Their ships swarmed toward the seemingly easy targets, eager to consume the organic materials and technology. When a significant portion of their fleet had committed to the attack, Hansol activated his program. The modified visual and electromagnetic signals cut through the Scourge communications like a knife. Ship turned against ship. Formations collapsed. The hive mind that gave them strength became their greatest weakness as contradictory commands spread confusion. In that moment of chaos, the main fleet struck. Leading the assault was Ta-1 and her fighter, targeting what intelligence suggested were the primary synaptic nodes of the collective. All units, execute Phase 3, she ordered calmly. Phase 3 was perhaps the most disturbing to the Confederacy. The human forces had studied the biological nature of the Scourge and determined that their neural systems could experience something akin to pain or fear. The attack focused not on destroying the maximum number of ships, but on inflicting the maximum psychological impact on the collective consciousness. From the Confederacy Command Center, Krell and the other officials watched in horrified fascination as the human strategy unfolded. The Scourge fleet, which had never retreated in recorded history, began to pull back. "They're running away," whispered a Confederacy tactical officer in disbelief. Within 4 hours, the space around Elysium was clear of enemy vessels. The planet was saved. As the human fighters returned to base, an eerie silence fell over the command center. "Victory is ours," announced Ta-1 as she entered, her flight suit stained with sweat. "Yes," Krell agreed, studying her with new eyes. "But at what cost to our understanding of civilized warfare?" Ta-1 met his gaze steadily. "The only battles worth winning are the ones where your people survive to judge your methods." That night, as the Confederacy celebrated their salvation, the Council met in emergency session. The question before them was simple but profound. What does one do with allies whose methods of warfare are too effective and too terrifying to be allowed to spread? The Grand Hall of the Confederacy Council gleamed with polished stone and shimmering light arrays. Tai-1 Park stood alone in the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by representatives of 300 alien species. The victory celebration had ended abruptly when the summons arrived. Now she faced the entire council, not just Ambassador Krell or the military command. High Counselor Vex, an ancient being with translucent skin that revealed complex organs beneath, floated at the head of the assembly. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Vex finally spoke. "Commander Park of Earth, we have reviewed your species' military history." Tai-1 maintained her composure. "Our history is complex, like any species." "Not like any species," corrected Vex. "Your world wars, your Cold War, your counterinsurgency operations. Your species has spent more of its recorded history fighting itself than any other known intelligent life form." The holographic displays around the chamber activated, showing scenes from human conflicts throughout history. Medieval battles, nuclear tests, modern urban warfare. The images reflected in Ta-1's dark eyes as she watched without comment. "All historical conflicts," she finally said. "We've worked hard to move beyond our violent past." "What disturbs this council," continued Vex, "is not what you did in our war, Commander Park. It's what you chose not to do." This was not what Ta-1 had expected. She tilted her head slightly in confusion. "I don't understand." A new counselor stepped forward. a being composed of interlocking crystal structures that chimed softly as it moved. Our intelligence division has studied your combat records and historical archives. Even against the Scourge, your forces operated under self-imposed restrictions. You had chemical weapons you did not deploy, biological agents you did not release, psychological tactics far more severe than what you utilized. Taiwan's posture stiffened. Of course, the Geneva Conventions and other treaties limit what methods we consider acceptable, even against non-human enemies. You created rules, said Vex, because you discovered these methods on your own, because they occurred naturally to your species. The chamber fell silent again. Taiwan looked around at the alien faces, seeing a mixture of fear, fascination, and something else. Respect. The restraint you showed, said Krell, speaking for the first time from his position in the lower tier, is what truly frightens us. It means you could have done much worse. Taiwan felt a sudden understanding wash over her. They weren't angry about human tactics. They were terrified of human potential. The Human Containment Act is now in effect. Vex announced formally. Your species is banned from all galactic conflicts. On what grounds? Taiwan asked, though she already knew. Civilization-ending potential, replied Vex without hesitation. No species we have encountered in 50,000 years of space exploration has developed your unique capacity for both empathy and calculated cruelty. Your ability to understand your enemy and still destroy them systemically is unprecedented. Taiwan absorbed the information silently. Then, to the surprise of many present, she smiled slightly. What amuses you, Commander? Asked Krell. On Earth, we have a creature called a wolf. Many civilizations feared wolves and hunted them to near extinction. Others recognized their value and kept them as protectors. It seems the Confederacy has decided which we are. Vex's inner organs pulsed with what might have been agitation. This is not punishment, Commander Park. Your world will receive significant technological exchange. Your people will be granted protected status among all Confederacy worlds. But the galaxy cannot risk what would happen if humans ever decided that total victory justified any means. Taiwan bowed respectfully. I understand, and I accept on behalf of Earth. As she turned to leave the chamber, a young aide from her team approached. Commander, isn't this insulting to humanity, being banned from fighting their wars? Taiwan watched as the council members dispersed, many casting backward glances at the human representatives. No, she replied quietly. It's the highest compliment they could give us. They're not afraid we'll lose their wars. They're afraid we'll win them in ways the galaxy isn't prepared to witness. 3 months later, Earth received the first shipments of advanced Confederacy technology. Faster than light engines, medical devices centuries ahead of human development, clean energy systems that could end resource scarcity. The official reason given to Earth's population for these generous gifts was gratitude for assistance against the Scourge threat. The classified addendum, seen only by top military and political leaders, told the full story. Compensation for military containment under Galactic Security Protocol 17. Management of existential threats. As Taiwan watched the ships unload their precious cargo at the New Delhi spaceport, Jeho joined her on the observation deck. Do you think they'll ever let us fight again? He asked. I hope not, she answered, watching children gather excitedly around an alien visitor. I think we found something better than proving ourselves in war. What's that? Taiwan smiled. Being so good at it that they pay us not to participate.